This week on Money Matters, President Park Geun-hye's recent visit to China with the largest ever business delegation has delivered a flood of fresh results on the economic front. Big investments from abroad are giving Korean startups a lot to be excited about. Why are budding local firms attracting more money? The new opening for Korea's favorite health supplement, ginseng, that's enjoyed around the world. We'll look at the ample possibilities for the popular root. What stories matter in Asia? We'll look at the changing landscape of business in Korea and the rest of Asia on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm Kim Il-sun. Thanks for joining us once again. Today on our front page, we're looking at economic cooperation between Korea and China. Following President Park Geun-hye's visit to the country to attend celebrations for his victory in World War II, a lot of new developments were put into motion on the economic front. With China rolling out a massive celebration to mark its victory in World War II, a lot of eyes were on Tiananmen Square last week, and also there was Korean President Park Geun-hye. During a three-day visit, she held summit talks with her counterpart, Xi Jinping, and discussed a broad range of issues, especially on the economic front. The two leaders agreed to link up Seoul's Eurasia initiative aimed at boosting cooperation in Northeast Asia and Beijing's One Road, One Belt movement in order to create a new economic paradigm. They also agreed to create the largest cultural venture capital fund at roughly $200 million. A total of 33 memorandums of understanding were sealed during talks between the two leaders. President Park also requested that China become a shareholder in the Northeast Asian Development Bank that Seoul is pushing for.
동북아 지역의 긴장도 완화되는 효과를 거둘 수가 있는데요. 중국의 참여가 확정된다면 그동안에 동북아 개발은행의 미온적이었던 미국이라든지 일본의 적극적인 참여를 가능케 할 것으로 보여지는데요. 이에 따른 경제적 효과는 아무래도 저리의 채권을 발행할 수가 있기 때문에 동북아 투자 사업에 좀 더 많은 속도가 내지 않을까 보여집니다.
The president also discussed issues of economic cooperation with the Premier Lee Keqiang. During talks with the Premier, the two sides also agreed to swiftly ratify the free trade agreement, resolve issues of non-tariff barriers, and also boost exchanges in the private sector. After initialing the bilateral trade pact back in February, the two sides had struggled to narrow their differences on specific trade items, but the signing of the agreement and a push from President Park's visit is expected to add extra momentum.
한중 FTA는 양국 모두 중요합니다. 특히 한국의 입장에서는 중국의 경제 구조가 수출 중심에서 내수 중심으로 산업 구조의 변화가 일어나고 있습니다. 이럴 경우에 한중 FTA를 통해서 한국이 중국의 내수 시장에 빠르게 진출하고 선점할 수 있는 좋은 효과를 가지고 있습니다.
In time for President Park Geun-hye's visit to China, related agencies have been working around the clock to help companies get a toehold in the market. In the case of Korea International Trade Association, it dispatched a delegation to Shenyang to expedite a bilateral free trade agreement. It also held a trade counseling event. It's currently running a China desk so that the companies can call in and get advice on related issues on free trade pact. Once the Korea-China trade pact kicks in, companies will be able to enter the Chinese market with greater ease, and the Trade Association is providing full support to ensure firms can do so under the best conditions.
FTA 무역 촉진단이라는 것은 FTA를 활용을 해서 어떻게 중국 시장을 잘 진출을 할 수 있느냐, 그리고 그러한 발효 이전에 FTA가 정식 서명이 됐기 때문에 중소 중견기업들이 필요로 하는 여러 가지 지원 사업들 중에 중국 내수 시장 진출이라든지 FTA를 활용한 수입 품목을 중심으로 해서 그런 기업들이 중국 시장을 좀 더 보다 원활하게 진출을 할 수 있도록 이런 사업을 마련하게 됐습니다.
The reasons Korea has failed to ratify the free trade deal was because they struggled to find solutions for industries that would be hard hit. Measures to protect the fields of agriculture and fisheries need to be devised, creating heated debate between the ruling and opposition parties.
농산품을 포함해서 중국 사람들이 한국 제품에 대해서 굉장히 선호해요. 이제는 각 기업별로 실질적으로 어떻게 중국 시장을 활용할 것인가, 그다음에 중국 기업들도 또 실질적으로 한국의 이런 소프트웨어 쪽 노하우로 어떻게 잘 자기네 시장을 엮어갈 것인가, 서로가 진짜 협력이 필요할 때예요.
The recent Korea-China talks are expected to speed up the ratification of the bilateral trade deal, but not without extra efforts to prepare for conditions that will follow. Market jitters extend into September as uncertainties linger over a U.S. rate hike. This still has investors on their toes, and Korea has been no exception. The local currency plunged to a 5-year low at the beginning of the week, entering the 1,200 won range. And we'll get a look at some other stories from the week with Seomi Sorang.
Thank you, Ilsan. I'll start you off with some of the top headlines from Korea. Korea's GDP expanded by 0.3% in the second quarter, staying in the 0% range for 5 straight quarters, but still meeting early growth estimates. The country's gross national income, however, fell for the first time in 4.5 years during the April to June period. According to the central bank, Korea's GNI, a key indicator of purchasing power, slid by 0.1% from the previous quarter. BOK officials attributed the drop to a decline in interest and dividend income earned abroad. Net factor income slid below $1 billion from $5 billion in the first quarter, as most domestic firms receive foreign dividends in the first 3 months of the year. Korean brands have snatched up second place in China's market for foreign cosmetics from January to July this year, after sales jumped by a whopping 250% on year. Seoul's Trade Ministry said China imported $1.7 billion worth of cosmetics in the first 7 months of this year, up 36% compared to last year. Of those, Korean companies logged $370 million in sales, grabbing 22% of the market share. France, which holds 30% of the market, topped the list with nearly $513 million. Last year, Korea placed 4th after France, Japan, and the US. Industry experts attribute the success of Korean brands in China to the Hallyu movement, and they project the upward trend will continue. And now a look at some stories from other parts of Asia and around the world. The cost behind Beijing's massive military parade that unfolded on the 3rd this month is said to have been astronomical. The total bill stood at 21.5 billion yuan, or roughly $3.4 billion. Much of the cost came from the halted factory output, with Beijing having slammed the brakes on production lines for 20 days to ensure the bluest skies possible, for a loss of 19.2 billion yuan. And the price tag for putting almost 1 million Beijing citizens and police on the street came to a hefty 1.2 billion yuan. Also included in the parade bill are losses incurred by businesses in the city that closed shop for the event, and also training costs and meals for the hordes of soldiers that marched down the city. Experts estimate the overall payment for this one-day celebration likely surpassed costs that went into ceremonies for Beijing's 2008 Summer Olympics. Now, from China to India, a lot of luxury brands are shifting their focus away from the world's second largest economy to Asia's 3rd largest market. With China facing an uphill battle against lackluster growth, high-end brands are inching into the new market. Unlike other emerging economies that have been hard hit by China's sputtering growth, India is offering a glimmer of hope, showing robust performance. As of this year, the number of households with more than $3.8 million worth of assets stood at 130,000. And with a swelling number of affluent families comes a boom in the luxury goods market. The country's market for high-end goods was at around $2 billion last year, but by 2019, it's expected to more than double to $5.6 billion. And with a per capita GDP of $100,000, top-notch welfare and a $25 billion trade surplus each year, Qatar certainly has a lot to be proud of, but it's recently been seeing turmoil at home. With oil prices plunging and natural gas sitting at half its original price, Qatar is experiencing a nosedive in its source of income. Likewise, other major oil producers in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, are also fighting against sliding oil prices and climbing military costs that are dragging down the economy. It's not only that, as countries try to stamp out potential democratic grassroots movements after the Arab Springs 4 years ago, they rolled out aggressive spending in welfare to stem growing disgruntlement among its people, and this is also draining the country's coffers.
The entire world is facing a startup war, and this is no exaggeration. We see an increasing number of newly founded companies making a splash with their success stories both in Korea and abroad. The startup battle in Korea is just starting to get very fierce. We have Ole Duvunov, a strategist at the Asia Institute, to tell us more about this story. Ole, welcome to the studio again.
Thank you.
Well, we understand that there are many number of Korean firms that are startups making a news these days because they receive a very large sum of the investment capital from the venture capital companies. Can you tell us the overview of the industry?
Well, as of June 2015, more than 20 startups have received more than $50 million in investment. Now, the major field of attention has been the mobile app market. Also, Altus Ventures, a Silicon Valley-based VC fund, has created a Korea-only exclusive investment fund, over $60 million, to invest in promising Korean startups.
Very good. How's the global landscape on the other hand?
Well, if we look at Asia, just in the past year, there have been more than 25 investment rounds of over $100 million. Now, what is interesting is that in Asia, the average late-stage investment round is over $200 million, more than double of other markets. Now, also, finally, if we look at the global markets in general, just in the past quarter, more than 24 startups have received over $1 billion in valuation.
Well, speaking of those successful companies, can you give us a few examples of Korean firms where they received remarkable investment funds?
Well, immediately, Coupang, a leading e-commerce company in Korea, the Koreans' answer to Alibaba or Amazon, has received more than $1.4 billion from top-tier investors such as SoftBank. Also, Pedare Minjok, or Delivery Nation, a food-based delivery app, has attracted attention from Goldman Sachs. Now, why it hasn't succeeded is that because Korea has high connectivity rates, and it's very easy to reach customers through mobile devices, making it an attractive opportunity for these kind of technology companies.
Well, it's great to learn that these local startups are receiving a very favorable view from the global investors. But why have these young Korean companies receiving such a popularity? And what's the secret behind this?
Well, in Asia, the focus is on startups which can generate cash flow immediately, but they are capital intensive, such as Xiaomi from China, which makes smartphones, but also Coupang and Pedare Minjok. Now, Coupang, just in Korea, out of entire smartphone population, more than 30% of the Koreans have downloaded the app. Now, this is interesting because it's much easier to reach these customers, lowering the acquisition cost, lowering the loyalty and maintenance of the customer base. So this makes Korea an interesting market as a test base. So if an investor wants to test a business model, they can do it in Korea and then take it to the global markets.
So they think Korea market possibly be the pioneering market to test what's going to happen in the new market out there.
Korea is so advanced in technology and connectivity that as other countries catch up, these Korean models can be applied elsewhere.
In terms of the global investors looking into Korean market, from the perspective of the Korean startup, what are the benefits and drawbacks, if there is any, in receiving those foreign capitals?
Well, immediately from the benefits, the startups which receive money get a global recognition. Their brand image is increased and their network base is increased to make new business opportunities. Also, these investors bring state-of-the-art global management practices. So a young Korean startup immediately becomes a global company with global business practices.
Ole, I have the last question for you today. Historically speaking, Korea went through a huge startup boom, some say 10, 15 years ago, but it kind of dissipated, in the time. But recently, we are seeing some second boom in the startup industries and markets. In order to keep this momentum going and see this sustainable growth, what do startup companies need to do?
Well, immediately what comes to my mind is that when we look at the United States, the most successful startup market historically, the diversity is very, very important. If we look at the billion-dollar companies, just in the past year or 2 years ago, more than half of these firms have at least one immigrant co-founder. Now, if Korea relaxes visa rules to allow young potential talent to come into Korea, this may greatly benefit the labor market in the short, medium, and long term. And one example already this year, Japan, which has been going through a similar transition as Korea, has created a new startup visa. So almost anyone can come on a tourist visa, start a company, and receive an extension of the startup visa every single 4 months, as long as they show progress in their startup creation.
I guess the diversity is the key to success right here.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for your report, Ole.
Thank you.
Have you ever been stuck between paychecks? You just paid all of your bills, but now with no money left, you're stranded counting down the days until the next payday. Well, it's a situation that most salary workers have experienced at least once, and in fact, it seems to be quite prominent in Korea's current working society. On today's In Numbers, let's take a look at just how many people regularly find themselves in a pickle waiting for the next paycheck to roll in. Now, there's a phrase used in Korea, the barley hump, and it refers to the lean period people struggle to get through until the next harvest of rice or corn. This is why people living paycheck to paycheck have come to call that dry period when they've spent all of their paycheck and are waiting for the next, the paycheck hump. In fact, a survey on over 1,400 workers showed that over 51% of them go through a paycheck hump. And it also indicated that it took workers an average of 15 days to drain their paychecks. And when were those paycheck humps most severe? Well, it looks like May was the worst month, with over 70% of workers reporting it was a difficult time. But that might be explained by the many back-to-back holidays you see in May, such as Children's Day and Parents' Day, both events that traditionally involve presents. After that, the months of July at 7.6% and August at 6.3% followed. And that's most likely because those months are when people go on vacation. Where's all the money going every month? The survey also asked workers why they fell short in cash, and over 60% said the number one reason is that the paycheck is just too small to begin with. The next reason is said to be the high living costs in Korea. The third reason workers cited was the price of things like coffee or clothes is just simply too expensive. And in fourth place, many said they had loans and debts that were draining their accounts. Now, last on the list, workers claim that housing costs, such as rent and maintenance, is a major reason why they struggle to make ends meet. Now, sitting with a broken piggy bank is something you, of course, should try to avoid, but if you end up with one, well, know that you're not alone. Hopefully, we'll see less people going through this paycheck hump in the future. That wraps up In Numbers for today. Stick around for more interesting insight into Korea's economy and beyond.
One of the most popular products foreigners buy when they come to Korea is Korean ginseng, known as insam. The root has a strong reputation around the world as being a potent health food. But numerous regulations have restricted exports over the years. Here to tell us more is Seo Min-sorang.
You're absolutely right, and that's because up until recently, insam was classified as medicine, meaning insam products had to go through numerous steps before being approved for export. But in July this year, Codex, which is the UN body that sets global guidelines on food products, it classified ginseng as food, not a drug. It also adopted Korea's standards on ginseng products as the international guideline, ushering in a new era of insam exports. With ginseng now reclassified as food, numerous Korean manufacturers have been getting together to promote their goods to foreign buyers. Following a decision by Codex Alimentarius Commission, which draws up global food guidelines to adopt Korean standards as the international norm, companies now have grounds to have ginseng products recognized as food, not medicine. Compared to medicine, foods are subject to less stringent customs inspections and lower import tariff rates, meaning easier export procedures. Aside from marketing, businesses are continuously seeking ways to develop their products further to give them a competitive edge. Ilhwa was the first company in Korea to export ginseng overseas, beginning in the 1970s. It now ships over $20 million worth annually to some 40 countries. In Korea, ginseng has long been considered a health food. In order to enhance its global appeal, Ilhwa is continuously conducting research on its benefits and launching a variety of new product lines. As a result, one of its products won a gold award at the prestigious MoUs Selection Awards earlier this year. By using a patented enzyme fermentation process, the gels allow greater absorption of ginseng's main active ingredient, saponin.
해외 시장에서 성공하려면 단순히 고래 인삼의 명성만 가지고 되는 건 아니고요. 그 명성에 걸맞는 자료, 에비던스가 있어야 됩니다. 그래서 에비던스를 바탕으로 한 제품으로 제가 개별 인정을 받은 인삼 가수분해 농축액, 저희는 진스트52라고 얘기하는데요. 그 제품을 중심으로 해외에 지금 마케팅을 하고 있습니다.
Korean ginseng is available in its original natural form, but it can also be processed and sold in capsules, elixirs, and powders. Now, insam is considered to help improve one's energy and mental acuity, and this is why insam products are considered key components of the health, food, and supplement industry. Exports of ginseng have been rising steadily over the years and reached the $160 million mark last year. Major destinations are Hong Kong, Japan, and mainland China. The Greater Chinese market favors the natural root form over extracts, with hongsam, or red ginseng, accounting for more than 80% of all root forms. It's also the largest market for Korean ginseng, buying up more than half of all exports. The biggest reason for Korean ginseng's popularity here is a long-standing trust in its high efficacy. Also, Korean companies have set up local business units, securing expansive distribution channels and undertaking active marketing campaigns that have further pushed up outbound shipments. In 2013, the Korea Ginseng Corporation, which is the #1 market player in the country, surpassed the $40 million mark in exports to China. Earlier this year, one of its brands, 정관장, was selected as the #1 ginseng brand in the world.
중국 외에도 유럽이나 남미 지역 같은 경우에서는 의약품으로 분류가 되기 때문에 그동안 저희가 수출하기가 굉장히 어려웠습니다. 식품으로 공식 인증해주면서 인삼 소비 시장이 굉장히 확대될 것으로 전망을 하고 있고요. 저희 인삼공사도 각 시장별 현지 소비자들의 수요에 맞게 제품을 개발해서 전략적으로 시장을 공략해 나가도록 하겠습니다.
A boost in ginseng exports is not only good news for businesses, but also for farmers growing the root. Ginseng is cultivated nationwide, but Gyeonggi-do province produces the most at 20%. In 2009, the province established an integrated ginseng brand called Cheonggyeongsam, and earlier this year secured a deal to export ginseng drinks to China. A Gyeonggi-do Agricultural Research Center also visits local farms and advises them on better cultivation techniques to produce higher quality ginseng.
우수한 원료삼을 생산하기 위해서 GAP 인증 제도를 조기에 정착하는 지원을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 그 방법대로 한다 그러게 되면 농약 잔류나 중금속 등에서 벗어날 수 있고 상당히 세계적으로도 공인받을 수 있는 우수한 원료삼을 생산할 수 있기 때문입니다.
Meanwhile, derivative products are opening up new markets for the root as well. Insamju, made from soaking ginseng and alcohol, has become popular in Nigeria after Korean businesses started gifting it to local businesses and government officials. And cosmetics with ginseng extracts are selling well at both home and abroad.
국가적인 차원에서도 인삼에 대한 어떤 확실한 에비던스를 만들어서 또 세계 시장에 통용할 수 있는 귀중한 자료를 만들어서 나가게 되면 세계 시장에서도 인삼이 새롭게 각광을 받을 수 있을 거고요. 그리고 실버 세대를 겨냥한 그런 제품군보다는 전 세대를 아우를 수 있는 특징적인 기능성, 제형을 가지고 공략을 하게 되면 앞으로도 인삼은 세계 시장에서 크게 성장할 수 있을 거라고 생각하고 있습니다.
Well, Ms. Arirang, I believe ginseng is produced in many other countries as well, such as China, Canada, and the US. What's so special about Korean ginseng?
Well, simply put, it's the quality. For well over 1,000 years, neighboring countries like China have recognized the high potency of Korean ginseng and held it in a higher regard than their own. Now, one of the key factors that determines the quality of ginseng is its saponin content. And it's actually been found that Korean ginseng has, on average, twice the saponin levels compared to other countries' ginseng.
I see. We see in your report that the businesses are actively expanding their export markets. What activities do we see in Korean government to support this industry?
Well, for one, the Korea Ginseng Corporation that we mentioned in the video, they currently lend around $200 million every year to ginseng farmers at zero interest and also invest around $20 million annually in research and development. And with increasing interest from Southeast Asian countries, there are also plans to launch a marketing campaign in the region.
I see. Well, with the ginseng exports now made easier, I'm sure many businesses are there to grab the market share in the entire global market spaces. Thank you, Ms. Arirang, for your report.
My pleasure.
That's all we have on Money Matters. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll bring you plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia, give you a view of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Kim Il-sun. Thanks for watching.